Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino. I'm so excited to have our guest today. Deborah Voorhees is an actress. She's a writer, an editor, and director. She appeared in Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, and she wrote and directed the recent horror film, 13 Fanboy. So excited to have you, Deborah. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about being here.
First of all, I have to say, 13 Fanboy was really fun for me to watch because I'm a huge fan of the Friday the 13th franchise. So to see some of the original actors back, on camera in this horror film, it was nostalgia meets today. Can you explain to our viewers the film and how you kind of integrated some of the actors from the former Friday the 13th?
Absolutely. It's about a fanboy who is obsessed with the actors. Actually, he's obsessed with the characters because he doesn't really know the difference between the actors and the characters from Friday the 13th, as well as Halloween, because we have Dee Wallace in this as well. And he is stalking with the intent to kill. He feels that he has been wronged because he grew up feeling like these people were his family. And when they didn't respond to his letters, he's come for revenge.
When I was a kid, my dad used to lock me in the basement when I was bad. The only thing I had to keep me company was a stack of VHS tapes. Friday the 13th and Halloween, the entire sagas. You all became my family, so I wrote and I wrote, but you never wrote back.
Friday the 13th actress Tiffany Helm was found stabbed to death late last night. Some reports are even saying her head was completely severed.
Is it true that you were in Friday the 13th?
There was a piece of my hair cut out in the middle of the night. That means this fanboy, he's not just watching me, he's coming into my home.
He's dead, and she died on my hands.
Keep your doors locked and your gun loaded.
I'm so sorry you had to die.
How did this idea for this film come about? Because obviously you were in one of the Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. How did you kind of get this project off the ground, and when did it start, the idea for it?
The very beginning of the idea came when I was talking to my producing partner, Joel Paul Reisig. And we were talking about producing a different film. And he said, so tell me some about the horror fans. What are they like? And I said, well, they're really nice, very cool people. They're tons of fun to be around. And I said, just think of them as grown-up kids who like to dress up for Halloween. And they love special effects. They're really cool people. And he says, well, has there ever been really anybody scary? And I said, not really, no. And he said, anything weird, strange ever happen? I said, okay, well, I have had a little bit here and there, but we're talking about less than 1% of, horror fans. So one of them was, I got a message on my messenger that said, wouldn't it be cool if you died in real life like you died in Friday the 13th? And I was like, yeah, no, not cool at all. I blocked that person. 3 weeks later, and I don't know whether it was the same person or not, I get a series of text messages, this time on my personal phone. And this bothered me more than the other one. The other one was kind of creepy and weird. And what the hell are you thinking? Because, I was killed with garden shears through the eyes. That is not how I'm planning on leaving this world, right? And so I'm sitting there. It's late at night. I'm working on a screenplay. I have a single light on. I don't have the drapes drawn on my French doors. And basically, I live out in the middle of nowhere, so it's nothing but woods out there. And it says, I'm watching you. I couldn't help but look out because I knew at that moment somebody could actually have been watching me. I could have been in many places in the house at that time where they would not have been able to see me. But at that moment, they could have if they were actually out front. And then I get ding, ding, ding. And the next series of texts, basically, the person is claiming to be Jason and that he's there to kill me. And that was very disturbing. And right at that moment, Joel, my producing partner, says, that's our movie.
That's so funny. He sees the opportunity. That's a true producing partner for you.
Right. And I was just like going, yeah, no. I said, look, I'm thinking, what we're talking about here is real life. These are real life scares. I'm thinking a pretend monster,
right?
That this is real. And but after I thought about it, I decided it really was a must do. Now, I had a lot of hurdles because think about it. I wasn't asking the actors to come back and play a character being stalked. I was asking them to play themselves being stalked. That's way more intimidating. I know because I was more intimidated by it. And so ultimately, while I had planned on only directing, my producing partner wanted me to play a role in it right away. And I realized very shortly after that I needed to, because if I'm going to ask somebody else to do it, I need to jump off the cliff first. And that's what I did.
In telling the story about what you experienced while watching the film, you really felt that tension of being that person watched, and it just had that feeling of what if that really did happen. And I think that's what made it so much more scary, because I find that the scariest things are things that could really happen in real life. And
absolutely.
And I feel like that story, because it did happen to you, was something that resonated with people when they watched it. Now, you mentioned earlier, bringing back people to play themselves as somebody who's being stalked. Were you worried that maybe there would be some apprehension from those actors? Because some of them probably have indeed, especially female actresses, females have dealt with that much more often than male actors.
Absolutely. Not only did I know it could be an issue, I knew it was an issue. One of the actresses that I approached was the first final girl in Friday the 13th, which is Adrienne King. She had a longtime stalker, very, very serious situation. And it just, she wanted to work with us. But she said, ultimately, after reading it, she said, I just came way too close for her comfort. And we never even talked about her particular situation, other than I know that it was very serious. She said one day when you sit down with a little wine, she would talk to me in person about it. Then Lar Park Lincoln, who's also in 13 Fanboy. She's the final girl from part 7. And she had a real life stalker, also an extremely serious situation, 6.5 years of being stalked, even shot at. It's a really shocking storyline. And then Judy Aronson, who's in the film, she has also had a stalker. So it goes, on down. I've had online stalking. Now, when I was younger, I had it was actually, I know it was 3 young men who were teenagers when I was a teenager they were stalking me. I never did figure out who they were, but I knew it was them because it became very obvious that their car was there, they were there, and they were putting threatening messages in our mailbox and stuff. So, and they tried to run me off the road and several things like that. And so, but basically at that time, there were no stalking laws then. And basically I was told until someone gets hurt, we can't do anything. And I'm like going, I'm not really liking my prospects in this, since they are threatening me with bodily harm. I won't even say all the things they threatened to do to me. It's like, yeah, not really waiting for that.
I have to say though, everybody did such a great job in the film. And I know that it was it released late last year?
Yes, October.
What has the process been like? Because I know like being an independent filmmaker has its hurdles and everything, but I do feel like the film is getting out there because I ran across it on social media. For some reason, I came across it because of the things that I search for, I guess. And and that's why I watched it. And that's what I'm like, I'm going to ask her if she'll do an interview, Deborah Voorhees. But like I said, I won't give anything away in the film because I want people to see it. But I did not expect the ending that you have. I did not expect that, which is a true testament to a great horror film when you kind of have that, because I had a whole different other idea of who I thought the killer was, and it wasn't that person. So what was it like, and I know you're still in the process of doing this, just getting word out about the film, but what has it been like, getting it out there and for fans to see it? What has been the response that you've gotten from people?
I have to say, overall, it has been incredibly positive. We're in about every major streaming outlet out right now. We're on Showtime. We were in theaters, and everywhere I've gone, it's been very, very positive. People are also already asking me if we're going to have a part 2. I don't know the answer to that yet, but it is possible.
How did I know you were in acting, but then when did you get into writing? What was the road to, having a production company and now working in film, as opposed to being in front of the camera all the time, but actually kind of working behind the scenes?
I've lived a kind of a zigzag life. As you know, I worked in as an actress in the 80s and some behind the camera, which I really enjoyed working behind the camera, even if it was, just standing in was fun because I got to learn so much about how a film was made, and being there on a daily basis helped you understand more than just coming in for a quick role and leaving. And but yeah, then I left Hollywood. I went back to Dallas, and I got my college degree, and I worked as a journalist for many years at the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star Telegram. And then I went to try and teach. I got my teaching credentials and everything. And I didn't even think about Friday the 13th being a problem, but I was thrown out of 2 high schools. And I figured, well, I need to get into an industry that isn't quite so judgmental. And that's when I was like, you love storytelling. Maybe it's time to go back to filmmaking. And slowly but surely, the first film I did, and this is where I consider that I got my filmmaker's degree. it was called Billy Shakespeare. It made a ton of mistakes, got a lot of things right, and but learned the nuts and bolts about how to put a film together. And then I started doing everything from shorts to their features to music videos, taping, recording live shows, that sort of thing. And then I decided it was time to really work on creating a commercial product. And that's when 13 Fanboy stepped in.
I love that you also, you went back to school, you got your degree in journalism. I was in news for 16 years, like television news.
Were you?
So I know that's a grind, that business. And newspaper writing is very different from television in that it's very more long form, more extensive. Did you find that background, I know it's very different writing, but did you find that background was helpful in, creating characters? Maybe even based on some of the things you covered, some of the
well,
stories.
in this particular case, there wasn't really something that was direct from anything I covered. But what journalism brought me is it brought me strong writing skills, the strong ability of analyzing a situation, looking at character development through, interviewing thousands and thousands of people over the years. So there were a lot of pluses to journalism. I think that it was a really good way for me to basically continue my education, because basically after you graduate from college, you're still pretty darn wet behind the ears, and you need that boots on the ground training. And it taught me so much about the world and its makeup, because you have to keep up with the news and understand what's happening. And so I feel like it overall made me a better, more rounded person.
What was it like working with, Judy, Laura Park Lincoln, Dee Wallace, Tracy Savage is in the film. I like to imagine that all of y'all just hang out because you all have the horror thing in common, and especially those that were Friday the 13th. What was it like directing that film and working with those actors, who many of them are probably your friends now, right?
Right, absolutely. It was like a family reunion. Some people I knew who were coming to set, some people I didn't, some people I'd met on the convention circuit. And so it was like, oh, look over there, that's Uncle so-and-so. I know you haven't met him yet, but here, you felt related. You felt like a family. You felt like it was a coming together. And I could not have asked for a better experience working with everybody on set. I mean, it was brilliant. I was nervous, to be honest, because honestly, I hadn't been on, worked as an actress in decades. And that was the case for some of the actors, obviously not someone like Dee Wallace. But for a few of the other ones, it was the same. And I'm like, do we still have the chops? Can we do this? And I knew bad performances would sink the ship. And so, but I was so pleasantly surprised at how well everyone did. It was just, of course I knew about that Dee would do great. And look at Kane. My God, the man, he works a lot and does a lot, but he doesn't get those meaty, juicy roles that he'd like very often, because he's very often, that scene that we have in there with him talking about it, those are his real frustrations in life. Those are real things that happen. Each character has something. Since I was asking them to play themselves, I needed to put in something that showed who they really are. And the story that Kane tells about his father, that's true.
Wow.
That's true. And interestingly, I've had, most everybody who sees Kane in this are just absolutely blown away. They're like, this is his Oscar moment. he deserves that for this performance. And they're right. Every once in a while, I'll get somebody who's like, oh, Kane would never do that. He would never say that. He would never act like that. And I'm like, you're mistaking the monster for the man.
Right.
Because they're wanting the big tough guy. And Kane's as tough as they get. But at the heart of him, like all of us, we're still human. We're flesh and blood. And that was some beautiful moments there. And, every time Dee walks into the room, she just elevates everything. And I feel very privileged to have worked with each and every one of them. They were all just amazing.
And I know Tracy also is a journalist as well.
Yes, exactly. That's another example. Exactly. She was a broadcast journalist, and she also teaches. So the fact of her being a professor of broadcast journalism, that was brought from her real life. And she really did cover the O.J. Simpson trial.
So being part of the Friday the 13th franchise and family, for you, after all of these years, is it surprising to you that there is still such a huge fan base to this film, to all of them?
Yes.
And that at these conventions, you just see people lining up left and right, which is also in the film, but it's very true. Like for you though, being in part 5, is it crazy to you that people still remember like your death scene and all these things from that movie?
Absolutely. It's amazing. But every generation, for whatever reason, somehow identifies with the Friday the 13th, which is really, when you think about it, is mind-blowing. The idea that a series of films could mean so much to people. And so I am so incredibly honored to be a part of this franchise. And I'm in awe of it. I almost honestly am. And I'm in awe of the fans. I mean, they're really pretty amazing people. They really are. When I'm at a convention, I feel perfectly safe. They're just amazing. If there was a problem person there, I have zero doubt that I'd be protected and fast.
Especially if you had Kane next to you in the other booth.
Right?
Yeah. Is there anything that stands out to you working on the Friday the 13th Part 5 set?
I really enjoyed my time there. Working on a film is kind of like, going to the playground. It's recess, And I think the funniest thing was at lunchtime, seeing Ron Sloan holding the head, or Dominic with his arm, getting their hamburgers to go eat.
That's funny. Yeah. And how long did it take to actually shoot your death scene in the film? Because it looked like it was a kind of elaborate with just the different angles and how they had to do that with the makeup and everything.
It was elaborate. For one thing, just the application took 3 hours by itself. Because even though it was very thin, had to like a mask that went over the eyes. And there was a spot right here that made it look like a little bone was broken, little cartilage was coming out. But if they weren't careful, they had to keep applying makeup so there was no line. And that took a very long time. And then, of course, they had to put black in here and then some red, and then they actually poured the blood in, and that was actually difficult because it burns, because it seeps through. And but that was my first day on set, and everybody took great care of me. It was it was a lot of fun. It's of course it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but yeah, I was very pleased.
Do you still keep in touch with anybody from the film?
Yes, I do. And from Friday the 13th overall. Of course, I see more people at the conventions and stuff. And, it's just a really good group of people. They're really neat people.
As far as where people can find 13 Fanboy if they want to see it, where would the easiest place to find it? It's on all streaming services?
It's on all streaming places. It's on Vudu, it's on Amazon, iTunes, Google Box, or Xbox, Google Play. Just about every major outlet you can think of. It's on Showtime right now. And then you can get the DVD at Target, Walmart, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and several other smaller places. But if you type in 13 Fanboy, a bunch of stuff will come up.
I'm so excited that you did this film. It was so good. And it, like I said, I know that they're playing versions of themselves, but it was nice to see these actors all together in one film like that. I mean, how long did it take to actually shoot the movie?
It was about a full 30-day shoot, which is, for an indie film, that's a long shoot.
Yeah, because I mean, like usually it's a couple of weeks, and most of those types.
You could do it for that, but that would be really tough. But I would say more in the 20, 23, 4 days.
Yeah.
Realm.
Is there anything else that you want to add, or anything that you want to get out to the fans of not only 13 Fanboy but Friday the 13th?
Well, if you want to keep up with what I'm going to be doing next and keep up with what's going on with 13 Fanboy, I will be taking it and showing it around the country and meeting up with some horror fans this year. You can learn more about where I'm going and stuff by going to Deborah Voorhees Share Horror Group. And I've got about 12,000 plus people in there. And that's where I post everything. When I did this film, I would post and say, hey, I am looking for music. I'm looking for artwork for walls. I'm looking for extras, actors, and I post everything there because I want to give the fans a chance to be a part of the films, not just go and consume them. And so, find me there. I do have a personal page, but I'm almost always at 5,000, and I have at least another 1,000 waiting. So that's a really tough one to get into. But I wish that Facebook would just allow me to accept anybody, but they don't. So that's why I made the group. And that's where I spend most of my time when I'm online anyway. So that's the best place to talk with me anyway.
For you, what else would you like to do in terms of film? Because you said you had some other ideas before 13 Fanboy came along. Are there any projects that you're currently looking at doing or in the beginning stages of development?
I actually have 3 pieces that I have in various stages of development right now. One of them is a horror thriller on dealing with reincarnation. Another one has kind of a misery Gone Girl vibe. And then we have a true life ghost story as well. And they're all absolutely amazing stories.
I have to ask you, since you are so deeply entrenched in the horror world, did you grow up liking scary movies, or is there one in particular that you've grown up loving or that you even love today?
Well, the ones I grew up with, those were the Universal monsters. And my favorite has always been Frankenstein's creature.
Okay.
And one of these days, I would like to do a film directly just from his perspective. Because also when I was teaching, I taught for a period of time, and my specialty was British literature. And so I taught Frankenstein several times. And the book is interesting. It was written in a time before the novel had all kind of like rules in place. And Mary Shelley wrote it from 3 different people's perspective. And to be honest, I didn't feel like 2 of them worked at all. One was from Frankenstein and one was from a ship captain. And then in the center is the creature. And that's when the book just absolutely shines. Its absolute magnificence is there. And you get to see who he really is. And the creature was not bad. The creature responded to a response around him, and he became frightened. And I feel like that's the story that really needs to be honed in on and worked on and talked about.
Having the last name Voorhees, has that, I mean, it's funny because you're in Friday the 13th.
I know.
And then to have that last name, that's pretty awesome. I'm sure that's gotten a lot of attention, huh?
Yeah, it definitely cracks people up, but I'll tell you, it goes even further than this. Okay, that was my grandfather's name. Mind you, it's been in my family since about the 1300s, okay? So my grandfather was a Voorhees. My grandmother was a Higgins. And do you remember in part 3, Higgins Haven?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Now, I have never verified this, but I have been told that Pamela Voorhees's middle name was Sue.
Yeah.
My middle name is Sue.
Wow. It's like the universe is telling you something.
You're supposed to be a part of this, this franchise.
Well, I'm so glad that you are. Again, I'm very appreciative of those that respond. Like, I've reached out to several people and you responded quickly, Melanie. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it because I love everything horror. I don't know if you can see Jason behind me.
I can.
I love all horror related. And, Friday the 13th is also like sentimental for me because my dad, he passed away about 6 years ago. But my dad and he loved Friday the 13th. My mom hated that I watched scary movies. Like, she's like, that's going to warp your mind, But I always loved them. Like, that's what I grew up watching. But my dad loved Jason. Jason would make him laugh, actually. So I always say I get my sense of humor from my father. But my dad loved I think we went to see part 5 at the movies. But so my memories of Friday the 13th, which I'm sure you hear from many fans, it's not just that it's this horror franchise. A lot of it's very much tied into like growing up with it, watching it, and having a very emotional tie to it, which may sound weird to people who aren't into those kind of movies. But do you hear that a lot from fans?
I do. I cannot tell you how much I hear from people about how much it helped them growing up. And very often it did have to do with bonding with the family member, that you go and see the scary movies together. And I've really come to greatly respect the horror fans because it's like they take and look straight on at what most people kind of shy away from, as it's too scary, it's too this, it's too that. And, they really, I don't know. I have seen it help people so much. And that wasn't something that I ever expected, but without being a part of the franchise, I would have never known how much a movie, or particularly a horror movie, could mean to somebody.
Also, what I also find is a lot of horror movie fans, I don't know what it is. Well, I spoke to Melanie about this because she kind of mentioned it. There's a lot of LGBTQ people that love these movies. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that, myself being included, I think part of that is just, I always identified with the survivor, because I think people who we all go through adversity and we all deal with our struggles, no matter who you are. But I think when you are in a marginalized group or you've always felt different, for whatever reason, these films I don't know what it is. It might be the survivor. You could identify with the killer, but there's something about it that makes you feel like you identify in a weird way. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Do you hear that?
It does. And, I have been wondering and been thinking about this myself, because I did know that there is a big community that really loves the horror films, the gay, lesbian, and so on community. And I've really thought about that. And, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think about it, and you look at something as simple as how much more difficult life is. I go around and nobody says anything if I'm holding my husband's hand or if I reach over and give him a hug. But you hear people say, well, I don't mind as long as they don't throw it in my face. And so I'm like, if I hold my husband's hand or give him a hug in public, or I'm going to dinner with them on a date, nobody says I'm throwing anything in their face. And so I occasionally will respond to somebody who's misguided and perhaps being a bit homophobic, because they'll say something along that line, and I'll go, I agree. I completely agree with you. And I think it's time. I'm so sick and tired of heterosexuals always throwing it in our face.
I love that.
And then I just kind of slick away, and I'm like going, but they don't realize that how much having a mate is a part of who we are as a person. And if you can have to go out into public and pretend like you're not with that person, or pretend you're with somebody else, but your real mate is over here, you're basically telling somebody not to show their own identity. And I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it is. The tiniest little circumstance that I had to give me an idea along those lines. One Halloween, I just dressed up as, now I'm running blank on his name. You know it immediately. He was a very famous writer. He was gay.
Truman Capote.
Thank you. I dressed up as him, and all I did was, just a couple little things, and I got a towel and made it so it looked like I'd have a penis and all of this and stuff, and I felt so uncomfortable. I mean, I was just so shocked at how uncomfortable I felt, and I thought how horribly difficult it must be to live with this on a day-to-day of pretending to be someone else. And I know things are a lot better than they were earlier on. But man, that's just so tough.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, from my perspective, being a woman growing up in the time period I did, you were definitely not accepted, but I didn't have to hide my sexual identity.
Right.
And that sexual identity, it's not just who you're having sex with, it's who your partner is, who you love, who you want to show the world to, who you want to, if you're taking a selfie, you might want to give them a little kiss on the cheek for their birthday and show the cake.
Yeah.
You're asking people to not participate in the normal world, and that's wrong. And I frankly don't get it. I don't understand why anybody gives a shit.
I don't either.
What does it matter? It makes no difference.
And that's why I think, all of that's very true. And even for you being a woman in the industry that you were in, I'm sure you dealt with your share of, especially because people may view you a certain way because you did nudity or what, and who cares, right? Like, who cares? Right. But you said even like in school trying to teach, they judged you so harshly for that. And you just think it's insane that And that's why, again, I go back to saying that I think there's something with this franchise where people who have felt marginalized or judged, right, they identify, even with Jason, because he's judged, right, and, you know, and so there's so much. I always say these films are so much deeper than people give them credit for. Some
right,
who don't get it. Yeah.
Right. If you look at, to me, that would be one of the most interesting things to do with Jason, is to take Jason and look at things from his perspective as a child, and see how he grew up. And to me, I think that is really could be an amazing, powerful story, because we have to remember that every time someone makes an ugly comment, every time that someone is unkind to another, that is, you're basically, how do I explain this? You're harming someone. Now, granted, we all need to get to the point where mudslinging doesn't bother us. And we probably will all get there one day and of course, then the mudslinging will stop, because nobody will be bothered by it. But, you know, I look at humanity and I really feel like we're basically still in a toddler stage, because, you know, we throw blocks at each other, we hit each other, we pull each other's hair, we say mean things to people, we go, meh, you know, we're children. We are not anywhere near anything that could be remotely seen as being an adult. As an adult, these things wouldn't bother us, and we would never do it to another person either. Right. We would never, ever be ugly or disrespectful or unkind to another human being. That would be as difficult for us to do as, like I say, murder will end when we finally understand that we are truly one, and that it will become as difficult to harm another person as it would be to take and physically remove our own arm.
You're right. You're right. That's so true. And I hope we get there. Yeah.
We'll get there, but we have to remember we're still toddlers. I really don't get us beyond 3 right now.
All you have to do is look at social media.
All you have to do is social media. Yeah. I mean, there's a few people. I think I'm a good solid 6 on most days, 6 years old, thoughtful, considerate, you know, starting to kind of get better in life. Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, when I look around at but I say that, and on one hand, but also don't forget how beautiful toddlers are, those sweet little smiles they give. And so humans are also these wonderful, magical creatures. We can't just say that because some bad things happen, that most human beings are bad. You know, in fact, it's quite the opposite. I think most are absolutely lovely. And, you know, we're just running around because we're so young and so little and everything. We run around with a lot of hurts and, well, so-and-so is mean to me and that really hurt my feelings, you know? And then you want to pick up the rock and throw it back.
I think more people should watch scary movies, and maybe it would be, maybe they would get their aggression out that way. Just
it's possible. You know, I don't know the answer to that, but you know, could be something to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Deborah. This has been such a good conversation, and I love, you know, hearing your perspective on things. And just like I said, I can't say it enough. 13 Fanboy, it's so good. I hope everybody goes out and sees it.